Hey, welcome into Expanded Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans don't let fans drive drunk. As we wrap up activity from the BlueCross Bowl at Chattanooga's Finley Stadium over the weekend, I'm Maurice Patton. That is Wade Neely. 9 new high school football state champions in Tennessee have been crowned, and we will talk about most of those probably because we talked about some of them on Friday, but we will talk about those that took place Friday and Saturday, and we'll probably talk a little bit about Thursday's championship games as well here in the next bit, as we're with you for an extra 30 minutes before we swing into our conventional Monday mirror version of Main Street Sports Today. Again, I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company Studios. And again, we are presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Wade, I don't know how much high school football you got to see over the weekend, but there were some pretty riveting ball games, a couple that may not have been so riveting, but again, 9 state champions.
9 champs, and you're right. I wasn't on site, didn't get as up close as you, but I was tuned in as much as I could from afar, and there were some good games. There were some very compelling storylines, especially in 1 or 2 ball games.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, like you said a moment ago, we got 9 championship trophies handed out over the course of 3 days. That sound you hear is the collective sigh of relief of everybody over in Hermitage at the TSSAA headquarters, because BlueCross Bowl is in the books, baby.
BlueCross Bowl is in the books, and nobody is happier than the TSSAA staff, like you said. Some old and some new taking place over those 3 days down in Chattanooga. Alcoa wins its 8th millionth state championship, defeating Westview in the early game on Friday for the 3A championship, 40-21. We talked a little bit about that on Friday because it had cleared before we came on the air. We're going to be visiting with Oakland coach Kevin CREASY here in a bit. The Patriots avenged their 24-9 loss to Houston in last year's Class 6A state championship, bouncing back for a 42-20 victory over the Mustangs on Saturday night. Oakland's 4th championship in 5 years, their 5th in 7.
Big time result for Oakland.
Yeah, I think they call that a dynasty. So, and if you have any kind of empathy at all, as happy as you may be for Sevier County, you got to feel a little something for Page, man. 4 straight state championship game appearances, 0-4 as the Patriots fall to the Smoky Bears 27-20 in the 5A championship game on Friday night. Man, that was crushing.
Yeah, that is the one that, man, if you are a fan of football, you want to see a great game, and you kind of got that, but man, you're also in it for the storylines, and that one goes both ways, right? Sevier County gets their first title since like 99, and then Page is denied at the altar 4 straight times. And man, I even read it, it was so rough too, that our buddy Blaine Keller, I was reading his recap, and Page, when they're handed the trophy kind of falls apart. And some of the players kind of fittingly say, well, that's just, why not? Right? That's kind of how it's gone. Some of the seniors kind of at least were chuckling a little bit about the situation because, man, that is a crushing situation for a team that we've talked a lot about how good they were this year.
Without question, that was definitely a laugh to keep from crying type situation, kind of a adding insult to injury there with that, that 27-20 loss, and then the trophy kind of coming apart. I think the ball came maybe unscrewed from the base. I'm not sure exactly what took place. I don't know that it actually broke, but it was in 2 pieces there at the end. But yeah, and the Patriots were in a bunch of pieces. I mean, just a tough loss. Page had given up 31 points all year. They gave up 27 points Friday night.
That's how it goes. And, I said it Thursday and Friday. That's what I was worried about, was for a team when you rely on your defense so much, not saying it will happen, but what if you fall behind a little bit? How do you
Hmm.
chase the game when you haven't had to chase a game all season? And credit to Page for bouncing back, especially after the wild block field goal right before halftime that was returned for a score. Defense, kind of probably looking at the special teams like, come on, guys, get it together. But down 24-7, they made it a little closer and, scored late in the game and had a chance at the onside kick, but wasn't meant to be. And unfortunately, like we said, always the bridesmaid for Page these last 4 seasons.
Yeah, but you know what though? I feel like there are a number of teams that would trade places with them because
Yeah,
you
no
got to
doubt.
you got to get there.
Absolutely. So that's the thing too, right? I mean, as crushing as that is and as frustrating as that is, and I don't know that anybody in Rutherville really is thinking about that at this particular moment. But we're going
Hmm.
to look back, especially if, you don't get back in the next couple of years. You're going to look back on that run that they had with some fond memories, as crushing as it is here in the moment.
Uh, 4 state championship games in 4 years. I mean, other than Oakland, I'm not sure who does that. So, congratulations to the Patriots. Like you said, they're not ready to hear that, but heck of a season, heck of a run. 52-8 over these 4 years, those seniors were. So, in between, Memphis Academy of Science and Engineering, MACE, introduced themselves to the rest of the state with a dominant 36-14 victory over South Pittsburgh in the Class 1A championship game Friday afternoon.
Heck of a win for those guys. And, that was, we had mentioned it earlier in the week, right? We talked about it on a couple of different shows that you don't necessarily know a lot about them, but a team that can beat McKenzie trailing 14 points in the fourth quarter, that kind of gets a stamp of approval. They're not going to be daunted by anything or intimidated by anything. And they certainly, that was a close game early. It was during our show on Friday. And,
Mhm.
Mace ends up pulling away in big fashion. That is a great win for them as they kind of maybe, plant their flag across the Seaway Lakes going forward.
That's one of those where if you didn't know about Mace, one, you better ask somebody, and two, now you do. So, big win for the Phoenix there out of Memphis. On Saturday, we opened play with Macon County. Lafayette stand up 45-14 over Memphis Melrose. Melrose knocked off the defending state champion Pearl-Cohn Firebirds in the state semifinals the previous week, but the Tigers came roaring into Chattanooga and roared out again 45-14, and this one was never really close.
Yeah, this was the one game that I wasn't totally sure which way it could go, and kind of like we just mentioned with Mace, a Melrose team. If you can knock off Pearl Cone, you raise a lot of eyebrows, no matter if it's home or if
Mm-hmm.
it's away or if it's at a neutral site. That is a big win, and so I didn't know
Huge.
what to expect. But they only score 14 points, and they only come in the third quarter. Like you said, they were kind of out of that game from the jump. Credit for at least clawing back in it. Got it to 24-14, but trailing too much, too little, too late. And credit to Macon County. Yeah, Lafayette is jumping for joy here on this Monday.
Absolutely. A lot of purple in the stands and on the field for the Class 2A game as the Marion County Warriors held off the Milan Bulldogs 17-7 in that one. Marion County hit a big pass play for a touchdown early on, and Milan just couldn't get back in it. Defense, they held them close enough to give themselves a chance, but just never could get the offense in position to get back. So the Warriors, these are a couple of storied programs. You've seen them in the state championship game numerous times, but the Warriors coming through the area favorites down there in Chattanooga. So big win for that program.
Absolutely. And, that's their 5th title now. Most of them, all of them in the 90s, the early 90s. So that's one of those programs to kind of see them get over the proverbial hump was really cool. And, man, they got some good running from Sam Pickett, but they got some good throwing from him as well. He ends up being their MVP, running for a touchdown early, throwing for one to get them up 14-0. And then it was like the defense is just like, okay, enough. We're not giving up much the rest of this game. Only 3 points in the second half. Good win for Marion County, and Milan's got to be frustrated because that seemed like the closest game in a lot of respects on Saturday, and it was there
Mhm.
for the taking down the stretch.
No doubt. Let's take a break here from our expanded version of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans don't let fans drive drunk. When we come back, we hope to be joined by Class 6A state championship coach Kevin CREASY of the Oakland Patriots. Stay tuned after this.
He shoots and he scores!
Welcome back into Main Street Sports Today, expanded coverage as we take you through this weekend's BlueCross Bowl High School State Football Championships. We're presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans don't let fans drive drunk. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. And Kevin CREASY is a great football coach. Technology, not so much. We're efforting to get the Oakland coach in with us here to talk about their 42-20 victory in Saturday night's 6A championship game against Houston. So he's bubbling up here on my phone as we speak. You know what that means. So we are efforting. Hope to get him in. But again, this was a close ball game early. In fact, I believe Houston led it for some point in the first half, but Oakland broke away after the break and again picked up their 5th state championship in 7 years, their 3rd in 4 years, and most of those coming in dominant fashion. So there he is. We are joined now by the man, the myth, the legend, Kevin CREASY of the Oakland Patriots, outside the field house, outside the David Alsop field house down
That's
there in
right.
Murfreesboro.
That is correct. David Alsop field house.
Hey, I told you Alsop was my sophomore history teacher at Franklin High School, right?
You did not tell me that.
Yeah.
He lives in
Yeah.
my neighborhood. I may just go
Tell him
by
I
and
said-
see him today. Ask him
tell
what
him I
kind of
said,
student
hey.
you were.
Don't
will.
ask him that. Kevin, congratulations, man. How's it feel to be back on top?
Well, there's no feeling in the world like it, you know. That's why I had to bust out of the field house. We just got our seniors in here, and they're being sized for rings, and that's always special. Anytime you can win your last game and, you know, get the ring guy in here the next Monday, it's a good year.
He's got a really big team. He needs some really big rings.
We're trying to go
mean,
with belt buckle size this year.
Now we're talking.
I'm not surprised. You know, how much motivation was last year's game?
You know, we weren't sure, you know, we'd run into each other. You know, we both had good senior classes and they both graduated, but ultimately, you know, we had our silver ball put on the ugliest podium we could have built and displayed it proudly in the weight room for over 365 days. So they got a chance to take a glance at it. We also had the stat sheet stapled to the podium, and we had a couple pictures of them with the gold ball on the podium. So, you know, I wouldn't say it was like motivation this week, but it's been motivation building up all year.
Yeah, that's a master class in getting the motivation factor going in the weight room. where some guys either want to be but they're hurt, or some guys don't want to be in general. Coach, you kind of really stuck it to your guys. You can be on this team, or you can run away from the pain of last year. I love the way that you approach that. It sounds like going into 2024.
Well, we had 100 excuses, our quarterback broke his collarbone. It was raining sideways. I literally almost drowned that game. It was raining sideways, and it was cold. We had fumbles, and we lost fumbles. And they laid it on the ground 6 times and recovered all 6 fumbles. We blocked a punt to take the lead. And instead of scooping and scoring it, we jumped on the ball, which we never do. So, yeah, we did some things uncharacteristic, and sometimes the ball bounces the other way, sometimes it bounces your way. We've been on both sides of that this year, but ultimately, when you remind them every day that we're responsible for the loss, the weather's not, because they played in the same weather we did. They made plays when we didn't on 4th down, and we missed an extra point by a guy that made 200 out of the last 202 that he kicked. Just uncharacteristic mistakes, and whether it's in the rain or not, they played in the same weather we did. So we weren't going to let them live with those excuses, and they did something about it this weekend.
They did do something about it this weekend. Kevin CREASY, Oakland Patriots coach, the Patriots with a 42-20 victory over Houston in the Class 6A state championship game, tied 14-all at the break. 3 third-quarter touchdowns, and stop me if you've heard these names. Dwan Morris and T.T. Hill scoring all 3 of those. T.T. scoring twice, and Morris with a 3-yard run following a 1-yard scoring run in the second quarter. But and a 67-yard. Okay, I thought I saw a big one there in the highlights. But so 3 total touchdowns for Morris, the UT commit, and he was your guy, I guess.
Yes, he was, and we talk about adversity. I'm sure all teams go through adversity, but Dewan was up for Mr. Football last year, not up for it this year because he missed most of the regular season. First play, you were at the Independence game, Mo. First play of the season, he has a terrible high ankle sprain that he never recovered from in the regular season. Finally got healthy in the playoffs. T.T. Hill broke his arm, had surgery on it. Craig Tutt mostly played defense. We had to have him on offense. And so Tutt's now up for Mr. Football. And ultimately, all 3 of them, we did the math on it. 60 quarters we played this year, 60 quarters, and all 3 of them have played together for only 6 quarters. So it was all hands on deck Saturday night, and luckily 4 of the 6 quarters came in the championship game. And man, if we'd had those guys all year, I'd looked a whole lot smarter.
Well, if you'd have had those guys all year, there's no telling what you'd have done, because on Saturday they combined for 38 carries, 275 rushing yards, and all 6 of your touchdowns.
Yes, they did. And Dewan actually had 6 touchdowns, but 3 of them were called back.
3 official touchdowns at least.
Yes.
So that's reflective of the 10 penalties for 110 yards, I guess.
Yes. We did have 10, but I think Houston had 16.
16. 16 flags for 126 yards. So that's 26 penalties for what? 236 yards in a championship game. How did y'all get there?
Listen, don't get me started. They may find people for talking. I think they just
Nobody's listening to our show. Don't worry about it.
I'm just saying. It was just one of those games, I guess, got chippy, and they wanted to take control of it. And I think if you watch the TV version, we had a couple of our big time players get personal fouls, and I lit into them. I made sure that I didn't want them to be remembered as guys that were, showboating and winning the wrong way, and spinning the ball. That's not what we're about. Spiking the ball. Ultimately, a little push and shove afterwards. I think it did get chippy, but it was two state champions, and they were playing each other, and there was a lot on the line, and sometimes it does get chippy, and sometimes you got to throw flags to get people's attention, and sometimes, you might can handle it other ways, but there was a lot of times we left guys. TT got his second touchdown because Tud had to come off the field because of his knees being uncovered, and so we had an issue with the mouthpiece. I go for it on fourth down on our own 30-yard line because our long snapper doesn't have his mouthpiece in, and they kick him out for a play. I call timeout to get him back in. They told me that I couldn't put him back in. So our backup long snapper had already blown his ACL out. So the third string long snapper looked kind of nervous. So we just went for it. And it changed the whole game. And, everybody's like, man, that sure was brave. No, it wasn't. I was just, I was more scared than the third string long snapper that we would have had to put in.
Necessity is the mother of invention. And Kevin, I did see you lighting into one of those kids for one of those unsportsmanlike. So yeah, I had to explain that to some folks that I was watching with. What's he upset about? Well, one of his guys got a flag for being silly. But yeah. Oakland coach Kevin CREASY.
And I get silly, and I get silly, and I get excited, and I get being on TV and all that stuff. But ultimately, it's a selfish move, and that's what I was letting them know. It hurts our kickoff team, and we've had trouble on the kickoff team already, and then it hurts our defense, putting them in a bad spot. And, it just hurts everybody. So it doesn't do us any good. There's plenty of time to celebrate, getting this ring. We'll have plenty of celebrating going on at the ring ceremony. But, we wouldn't want anybody rubbing it in our face. And so it works both ways. And Carmen has a funny way of catching up to you sometimes too. So we try to make sure our guys do it the right way.
Yeah, if you could put that quick moment aside, you got the rest of the year to celebrate now. I love that.
No doubt.
No doubt. Been a lot of celebrating over on Patriot Lane in Murfreesboro again. 4 titles in 5 years, 5 in 7 years. CREASY 10 seasons at Oakland, 136-11. That's after going 79-12 in 7 seasons at Trousdale County with three championships up there. The Kingmaker, keeping jewelry salespeople in business, Kevin CREASY, multiple state championship coach over at Oakland. Coach, appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon. Congratulations. I wear a 10.5.
10.5. Yes, sir.
10.5.
And I expect your annual hoodie purchase. Are we going with the hoodie or the crew neck this year?
We'll see. We'll see. I'll get back with you. But hey, we will talk as you know we always do. And again, congrats. Enjoy it. We'll talk to you soon.
Well, appreciate you. Have a good
Absolutely. One. All right, we'll talk. Let's go ahead and go to a break here with our expanded coverage from Main Street Sports Today of the BlueCross Bowl, brought to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans don't let fans drive drunk. Stay tuned after this.
He shoots and he scores!
Continuing with our BlueCross Bowl coverage here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans don't let fans drive drunk. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. 9 state champions crowned over 3 days at Finley Stadium in Chattanooga, going back to Thursday. Christ Presbyterian Academy with a 38-26 victory over Battleground Academy in the Division II AA lid lifter Thursday morning, followed by Nashville Christian's 2nd state championship a 49-21 victory over Columbia Academy, making their first state championship game appearance. And kudos again to Harrison Brownlee, who scored all 3 of the Bulldogs' touchdowns in that ball game, 2 receiving, the first one rushing to get the Bulldogs on the scoreboard. And again, it was 14-14 at the half before Nashville Christian pulled away behind their quarterback phenom, Jared Curtis, and junior running back Terry Ward. The 2 of them combined were a little bit more than the CA defense could handle. Ward rushing for 203 yards and a big touchdown. And Curtis just, well, he looked like another quarterback that we're going to be talking about later in the show, actually. So won't spoil that one. But in the nightcap, McCallie comes back from a 3-touchdown deficit to knock off city rival Baylor 27-21. And in a weekend full of fantastic ball games, that one may have been the best one.
In terms of stakes, opponents, rivalry components, gold ball on the line, yeah, that one, a one-score game between 2 bitter rivals and revenge extracted, that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Baylor had won that matchup 44-12 during the regular season. So yeah, revenge was sweet, and I'm sure it was a dish served cold because it was awfully cold out there on Thursday night. Might have been the coldest game of the 9, but congrats to all the winners. And the Tornadoes say you won't have us to kick around anymore, or at least not in Class 3A, as they are headed for 4A for next year. And a lot of people breathing sighs of relief there.
Yeah, Alcoa just continues to dominate and kind of dominated a really good Westview team. It's the same script every year. There's a really good opponent and everybody almost across the state, kind of like when CPA was stunned by, who is it, Jackson Southside in basketball years and years ago. Everybody across the state is just begging for somebody to knock off Alcoa, and the machine just keeps machining. Great win for them. And man, I'm going to be so fascinated to watch them play at 4A because they are an elite team, but they're playing in a really tough division going forward.
They are an elite team at any level, and they've taken a lot of flack for staying in 3A, which is where their enrollment dictated that they be. And I'm not sure what prevailed upon them or what brought them around to the thought that, maybe we should step up, but they are stepping up. And so, kudos to them for, deciding to no longer be you kind of feel like big fish, small pond, but they're just playing where their number said they should play, and they've been better. But I am, like you said, fascinated to see how they fare at the next level. So
they've done it at 1A years and years and years ago. They've done it at 2A for a little bit, applied their trade really at 3A. This is wild. Their postseason record is 140-15. They've won 23 gold balls. They've only lost 2 championship games. So they're 23-2 all time in championship games. And 4A is going to be fun. I know there's a lot of coaches across 4A that are shaking in their boots, and rightfully so.
Yeah, but at the same time, as Ric Flair would say, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And it feels like Alcoa is somewhat the man. So it will be interesting again to see what 4A has for them or what they have for 4A. So we'll be keeping up with that. Let's go ahead and go to a break right here. And when we come back, we will swing into the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today. Stay tuned after this.
He shoots, and he scores!
It is the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios. Wade at the North location in Nashville, right?
We're northbound, and we are ready to rock and roll. Though I feel like we're already warmed up. We're revved up and ready to go, partner.
Yeah, I feel like we're pretty good and loose right now. I'm here in the headquarters in Columbia. We will be here for the next couple of hours discussing local, regional, and national sports after having discussed Chattanooga high school football, BlueCross Bowl for the past 30 minutes. If you missed it, be sure and go back and check that out. Kevin CREASY was gracious enough to come on and spend a few minutes with us after winning his 8th state championship in 17 seasons. That's not a bad percentage there. Pretty much every other year.
Yeah, that is excellence at the highest level, right? We talked about it last week. The 6A game, the last game, kind of your main event. You get to showcase for the rest of the country in some regards, kind of what your state football is all about. And that was a dominant performance by Oakland, who continues to keep rolling at 6A.
Absolutely. We're going to keep the football talk going because we will be visiting in the second hour with John BRICE of Football Scoop. The coaching carousel is cranked up and running, and we'll get some thoughts from him on some guys who have been hired and some who may be getting ready to get hired. So we'll check in with him on that because he's certainly got his finger on the pulse and his ear to the ground as far as that goes. In the next segment, we'll be visiting with Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com, checking in with him, getting his thoughts on the college football playoff brackets that were officially announced yesterday. We've got real matchups, not projections. We'll also talk to him about some bowl matchups that'll be coming down here as bowl season gets cranked up. So looking forward to visiting with both of them. We'll be talking a little Major League Baseball as well. The winter meetings are getting going out in Dallas. We've got some news, some free agent signings, some Hall of Fame phone calls were made yesterday. Looking forward to discussing that. In the grab bag, we'll be talking a little hockey, very little, a little college basketball. And as Wade likes to say, we are contractually obligated to talk Titans, so we will. But, man, you were actually there for that one.
Me and Ben Arthur, buddy, we braved Blaine and Terry. We all witnessed one of the worst NFL games in a while, and kind of a similar script as all season. The Titans were right there, probably should have won that game, but they find themselves on the short end of the stick, falling to 3-10.
Yeah, not a good place to be. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with the Titans and with the show. So let's go ahead and get it cranked up, or continue to keep it cranked up, as the case may be, with this weekend's results and today's schedule on the Rundown.
This is the Rundown.
Hey, folks, the Monday Rundown is brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA offers a faith-based, Christ-centered education in Murray County. So give them a call today at 931-388-5831, or you can visit them online at zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. That's Zion Christian Academy, prepared for college and equipped for purpose.
Let's start with some high school football action from the weekend. Again, the BlueCross Bowl state championships down in Chattanooga on Friday in Class 5A. Sevier County broke Page's heart with a 27-20 win for the Smoky Bears. It was Page's 4th state championship game loss in 4 years. Man. On Saturday, Macon County, the entire town of Lafayette looked like they were at Finley Stadium, and the Tigers responded with a 45-14 victory over Melrose for the Class 4A state championship. In Class 6A, as we mentioned, Oakland avenges last year's loss to Houston with a 42-20 victory over the Mustangs in the finale on Saturday night. Girls high school basketball from Friday night. Battleground Academy with a 61-55 win over Franklin Road Academy. It was Brentwood 54, Blackman 45. Cheatham County defeated Westmoreland 44-35. Collinwood with a 58-35 win over Culleoka. Columbia Central defeated Summit 61-42. Watertown with a 58-40 win over DeKalb County. It was Eagleville 40, Santa Fe 35. East Hickman Downs Battle Creek 74-25. Portland with a 46-33 win over Gallatin. It was Glencliff 34. Knowledge Academies 30. White House Heritage defeats Greenbrier 57-45. Harpeth Hall with a 56-19 win over Friendship Christian. Hendersonville 38, Station Camp 31. Hickman County defeated Ravenwood by 10, 42-32. Houston County with a 56-20 win over Montgomery Central. It was Beach 61, Hunters Lane 17. Independence in overtime defeated Hillsborough 35-33. It was Liberty Creek with a 64-35 win over Kirkwood. Lipscomb Academy defeated Goodpasture 56-42. Marshall County with a 3-point win over Spring Hill 40-37. And Middle Tennessee Christian knocks off visiting Columbia Academy 48-39.
Other scores rolling in from Friday night. Lebanon defeating Mount Juliet 74-32. White County taking care of Murfreesboro Central Magnet 57-35 was your final there. It was 55-37 as Nashville Christian defeated Hume Fogg. Nolensville on top of Rockville 58-54. Pope John Paul II 52. West Creek 28. Richland all over Mount Pleasant 65-11. It was Rossview 57, Creekwood 54. Springfield was the 77-40 winner versus Russellville, Kentucky. Shelbyville Downing Siegel 69-37. John Overton 52, Smyrna 42. Stewart County taking care of Joe Burns 51-28. Stewart's Creek Downing Riverdale 63-29. Wayne County edging Summit 44-32. It was Sycamore on top of Harpeth 48-25. Valor Collegiate, a big winner versus STEM Academy, 66-9 was your final score in that one. It was Wilson Central 52, Green Hill 36. And rounding out Friday scores, it was Franklin Christian defeating Zion Christian 49-12.
In Saturday action, Bartlett with a 59-57 win over Clarksville Christian. East Nashville defeated Christian County of Kentucky 57-41. Christian County, Kentucky also defeated Clarksville Northwest 68-23. Upperman with a 59-31 win over Creekwood. It was Father Ryan 53, Franklin Road Academy 45. Loser walk home, as close as they are. Lincoln County with a 63-58 win over Loretto. It was Owensboro defeating Pearl Cone 63-58. Richland Downs Lawrence County 60-53. And Silverdale Academy defeated Clarksville Academy 73-55. In boys basketball action on Friday, Blackman with a 67-50 win over Brentwood. It was Collinwood 67, Culleoka 62. Summit defeats Columbia Central 51-38. DeKalb County with a 70-38 win over Watertown. Eagleville edges Santa Fe 52-51. East Hickman with a 74-39 win over Battle Creek. Gallatin 69, Portland 49. Glencliff with a 56-53 win over Knowledge Academies. White House Heritage defeated Greenbrier 57-36. Hendersonville edged Station Camp 52-50. Hickman County defeats Ravenwood 58-48. Houston County with a 59-45 win over Montgomery Central. Beach 62, Hunters Lane 21. Independence with a big win, 26 points from Tyler and Lewis in a 68-47 win over Hillsborough. And Kirkwood defeated Liberty Creek 45-36.
Other scores rolling in from the weekend. Boys basketball, it was Lipscomb Academy down in Goodpasture 59-56. MBA on top of Friendship Christian 59-36. Marshall County was the 79-40 victor versus Spring Hill. Columbia Academy taking care of Middle Tennessee Christian 63-42. Lebanon 56, Mount Juliet 42. It was White County on top of Murfreesboro Central Magnet 44-26. Hume Fogg with a big win versus Nashville Christian 75-41. Nolensville on top of Rockville 59-55. Providence Christian down in Grace Christian Franklin 77-46. Richland capping the sweep versus Mount Pleasant with the 57 win in boys action. Rossview 60, Creekwood 55. Springfield winning over Russellville, Kentucky 76-69. Smyrna 65, John Overton 60. It was Joe Burns on top of Stewart County 60-24. Stewart's Creek defeats Riverdale 80-46. Wayne County takes care of Summertown in a close one 63-56. It was Sycamore, speaking of close one, squeaking by Harpeth 38-36. White House defeats Merrill Hyde 71-68. And Wilson Central takes care of Green Hill 58-52.
Saturday boys action, it was Brentwood Academy with a 66-53 win over Baylor. Upperman Downs of Creekwood 70-49. Kirkwood with a 65-42 win over Evangelical Christian. Jackson Northside defeated the Tennessee Heat 49-48. Excuse me. Loretto 58, Lincoln County 39. Richland with a 48-40 win over Lawrence County, and Hillsborough defeats Southwind 58-51. In women's basketball action on Friday, Cumberland with a 62-60 win over Southeast. Saturday, women's basketball action down at the Kirby Event Center. It was the host Belmont Lady Bruins with a 65-52 win over Middle Tennessee State. Murray State, old OVC rivalry. Murray State with a 116-80 win over Austin Peay. Tennessee's women defeated Iowa 78-68. It was Montevallo 57, Trevecca 40. Fisk with a 73-52 win over Voorhees. Mobile 72, UT Southern 68. That's a return home for somebody, right, Wade?
Yeah, Coach Sid, Coach Sid D. Westry getting the win over UT Southern. Former assistant coach sticking it to the Firehawks on Saturday.
Cumberland with a 90-46 win over Campbellsville. On Sunday, Tennessee State fell to Ole Miss 85-38, and Trevecca with a 45-41 win over Lane College out of Jackson.
Let's get you some men's basketball scores from Saturday. Belmont on top of MTSU by a slim margin, 82-79. Montevallo defeats Trevecca 89-71. Fisk downing Voorhees 87-58. UT Southern does bounce back, getting the split in that doubleheader Saturday. Coach Andy Sharp's bunch defeating Mobile 98-91. High scoring game there. Cumberland on top of Blue Mountain 73-64. That takes us into Sunday. Vanderbilt continues to roll, folks. Winning down at the Dickies Arena in Dallas-Fort Worth, 83-74 versus TCU. It was Samford 72, Austin Peay 47. SEC championship game. Took a little extra time, but in overtime, Georgia, they kind of like playing overtime games, I guess, lately.
Apparently.
They win it 22-19 versus the Texas Longhorns. More on them later. Big win for the Grizzlies on Saturday, defeating the Celtics on the road, 127-121.
More on them later as well.
Yeah, and they made it a sweep, not resting on their laurels, praise the Lord, defeating the Wizards 140-112 on Sunday. NHL, woof. The Senators 3, the Preds 1. Preds have lost, 7 in a row now. Not looking good for the boys in gold there. NFL, it was the Titans 10. Excuse me, it was the Jags 10. I wish it was the Titans 10. It was the Jags 10, the Titans 6 to cap your NFL scores from yesterday of local interest.
High school basketball doubleheader action this evening. All of these start at 6 o'clock. Fairview travels to Battle Creek. Hickman County is at Columbia Academy. Mount Pleasant goes over to East Hickman. Huntland hosting Culleoka. Christ Presbyterian Academy travels to Lawson. Trousdale County is at Maplewood. Dixon is at McEwen. Marshall County is at Mount Juliet. Spring Hill goes to Nolansville. Stratford hosting Hume Fogg. Murfreesboro Central heads over to Summertown, and Shelbyville is at Summit. In a girls-only game, Knowledge Academies travels to Dayspring Academy. In boys action, we don't have a start time for this one, but Grace Christian out of Franklin is going up to the Plateau, taking on the Bees of Upperman. And in NFL action tonight, Monday Night Football, the Bengals are at the Cowboys. That's a 7:15 kickoff. You can see it on ABC. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your rundown. Your top story brought to you, as always, by the fine folks over at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options, as well as their hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And we just referenced it there in the rundown as Tennessee defeated the Caitlin Clark-less Hawkeyes of Iowa 78-68. The storyline is that Iowa turned it over 30 times in this one, and Tennessee scored off of half of those. So, I mean, if you want to run a charity operation, Kim Caldwell and the Lady Vols are more than happy to accept it. First loss for Iowa since Caitlin and Lisa Bluter left. So, I don't know that it necessarily means anything. I mean, again, they are ranked number 17 in the country, or they were ranked number 17 in the country. They were off to an 8-0 start under their new coach, former Iowa assistant Jan Jensen. It wasn't just Caitlin Clark that they lost, though. I mean, they sustained a few losses from that Final Four team, but again, 30 turnovers. Tennessee scored 42 points off of those turnovers, and they picked up a graduate transfer, Lucy Olson, from Villanova, and she couldn't quite pull them through. This game, I came in on the tail end of this one, but it felt like it was a one-possession game pretty much the entire time I was watching it, and that was like midway the third quarter on. So, you know, Tennessee playing some pretty good ball as they get all of their new pieces together and acclimated to each other. I mean, they were heavy in the transfer portal during this offseason as Kim Caldwell kind of retooled that roster, and they are coming along. Obviously, they are undefeated as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, got a nice win for sure earlier in the year versus MTSU. But kind of this is one, you know, you and I obviously may disagree on this slightly, but this is one that's going to get everybody's attention, right? The casual fans. This is a statement win, and I take more of that on this end than I do from Iowa's situation. I think this is what Tennessee needs. Kind of take care of business, right? They got to go to Memphis later this week, or next week, which will be, you know, a good little road test. And then the schedule, you know, it's kind of manageable until bam, you're right in the thick of SEC play. So by not stubbing your toe versus Iowa here, or rather seizing this win versus Iowa here, you put yourself in great shape. And if nothing else, you keep the angry Lady Vols Twitter at bay for at least one more night. So because, you know, they're ready to pounce at a moment's notice. So that was a good win and a nice little feather in the cap that could prove useful come Selection Sunday for Tennessee.
Yeah, I think this is a bigger win for Tennessee than it was a loss for Iowa. Again,
Yeah.
Tennessee unranked going into that ball game, plus 15 on the boards, in addition to those 30 turnovers that they created and scored 42 points off of. So big win for the Lady Vols, kind of reasserting themselves on a national level with that one there at the Barclays Center. I'm not sure exactly what this was. I guess it was one of those made for TV matchups, the inaugural Women's Champion Classic. So, again, big win for UT there. Let's go ahead and take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company Studios, we'll be joined by CBSSports.com's Jerry Palm, talking a little college football playoff, a little postseason football. Stay tuned after the break. Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
Well, we went all out for you this year, didn't we, little girl? Yep, we got you what you wanted with all the bells and whistles.
A brand new car?
Let's go check it out. Come on. We're here.
Oh my gosh, we're going to the garage. I got a car.
Yep, let's get in here. Let me show you what's going on.
Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Duggar, got your 18 SEER heat pump with the ultraviolet home treatment system.
I cannot believe it. Thank you.
Yes! Give the gift of clean air this year. Merry Christmas from the Busy Bee family.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
He shoots, and he scores!
The Monday Mirror continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're coming to you from the Lee Company Studios. Wade from the Lee Company Studio North. I'm here at headquarters in Columbia, and we are pleased to now be joined by Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com, talking a little college football. Although we could talk some college basketball with Jerry, but we'll stick to football for now. Jerry, thanks for joining us. Relative to what you expected out of the college football playoff announcement yesterday, what did you get?
Well, I guess I was expecting Alabama to stay in the field because I felt like after the loss to Clemson that SMU's tournament resume, if you will, was a lot more like Miami's than it was Alabama's. They have one more win, of course, by virtue of getting to play in the conference championship game. So they were 11-2 versus 10-2, and they didn't lose to an unranked team like Miami did. And maybe that difference, I guess, was enough to keep SMU ahead of Alabama. And I don't really have a problem with Alabama being left out. As far as I'm concerned, that no-show game with Oklahoma is reason enough to leave them out in a competitive situation because everybody else showed up for all their games, and Alabama took one off. And that's just, boy, it's the most un-Alabama-like game in probably 20 years. But, that's, for me, that's a difference. That's a reason to leave them out more so than anything any of those teams did was a reason to put them in. Obviously, Alabama had some better wins. All of those came on their home field. So I just felt like they could have gone either way. But And so I don't really have a problem with SMU, even though I felt like if Miami's behind Alabama, then SMU should probably also be behind Alabama. But, you know, if you're one of those people who thinks, well, brands mean everything, yesterday was not your day.
Yeah, we kind of
– go ahead.
I was going to say we got the this won't, you know, this will still bring up painful memories for Florida State, but we kind of a year later get a little reversing of course there, Jerry. And you make a great point. Everything kind of broke the last 3 weeks of the regular season for Alabama to control its own destiny. And it sounds weird to say, but quote unquote, all they had to do was go on the road and take care of business versus Oklahoma and then obviously win the Iron Bowl. And to your point a moment ago, it was completely uncharacteristic. Not just the fact they lost the game, but that was an absolute clunker with Milroe having an abysmal second half as Alabama just never got back in that one.
Yeah, I read somewhere where that was Alabama's worst offensive performance since Nick Saban was on the other sideline 20 years ago, a 27-3 loss, I believe it was, to LSU when Mike Shula was a coach at Alabama. So, that's, you know, when you're historically bad, and, you know, relatively speaking, that was historically bad, it's kind of hard to swallow putting that team in a college football playoff because you don't want to see that team show up. The team that played Oklahoma show up at a playoff game. And say what you want about Miami and SMU, they didn't have a day that bad. So I'm totally fine with SMU being in this playoff. And I'm especially fine because it does away with all that, you know, brands mean everything crap.
You know, you kind of hit on it there, Jerry. SMU didn't necessarily have a banner victory, but they didn't have a dog loss like that Oklahoma loss for Alabama, or a bad loss like, and I got to be careful how I say this because of where I am, but the loss to Vanderbilt for Alabama is not a great loss.
Alabama should win. You know, it was a great day for Vanderbilt. You know, and they had a good season. They're in a bowl game, but you know that's a game that Alabama should win. You know, and they didn't, but. You know, if they show up to play Oklahoma, if they beat Oklahoma, we're not having this discussion. You know, they show up to play that. Maybe even if it's a competitive loss, we're not having this discussion. But yeah, the Vanderbilt game of those two losses was certainly the better one.
Jerry, real quick, I got to ask you, watching the game Saturday night, how formulaic was the committee? Was there any emotion tugging at the heartstrings with the way that the Clemson SMU game ended, looking like SMU is going to win? And then you talk about the narrow loss factor. I mean, that is the classic example. The way that game went down, and considering it was the last game that they had to watch before the seeding, the bracket, did that have anything to do with it in terms of leaving Alabama out and putting SMU in your mind?
I don't think there was an emotional aspect to it. But Ward Manuel did talk about how basically they lost on a last-second field goal. You know, so the game was not just competitive, but right down to the wire competitive. So I think that did have some impact. I don't think it was an emotional impact. I just thought that the high competitiveness level of that game did have something to do with SMU finishing ahead.
Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Jerry, besides in or out with Alabama and SMU, did you have any issue or concern with the order that these teams were shaken out in?
No, it was pretty predictable, really. Once we got to the end, the only real doubt was the cut line, the SMU-Alabama cut line. Everything else was, you know, the teams that did not play were going to stay in the same order relative to each other. And then the SEC championship game, the Big Ten championship game could cause some movement. And, you know, Georgia winning was going to jump them ahead of Texas. Penn State lost a pretty competitive game, so they weren't going to be hurt too badly by that. So the order, other than the right at the very end there, was actually pretty predictable.
What tweaks do you see forthcoming for this because it feels like the buys may not necessarily need to go to conference champions when you look at Boise and Arizona State, who are ranked 9th and 12th in the playoff rankings, getting buys.
Yeah, it has created some interesting things in the draw where maybe Oregon, the number one team, has got a worse draw than any of the other teams with buys, and it probably shouldn't be that way, right? It was set up this way because that's how the conference commissioners wanted it. This format is a 2-year format. You know, all the contracts are up after next year, so they could change it for next year if they want. Maybe they will, but the bigger change is going to come after next year when we get probably a larger playoff and the SEC and Big Ten getting multiple automatic berths in that playoff. It could even be something like the SEC and the Big Ten get 4 each, and everybody else is like 6 to 8 teams, maybe total. 4 automatic. They could still be others, but 4 automatic for each of those leagues. And I don't know, that really skews the balance, but the balance is already skewed. So it's something is going to come in 2 years that's going to be bigger, different, and very much in favor of the SEC and the Big Ten. As for next year, I mean, we'll see. I could live with this for 1 more year. But if they decide to change it and just go 1 to 12 rankings and seed them that way, I'm fine with that too.
That's kind of where I'm at, Jerry. You know, it feels like the 2 big dogs in the room, the SEC and the Big Ten, are going to ultimately flex their muscle until such time that they don't even need the NCAA. Is kind of what I personally feel. But I'm with you in a sense. For the next 2 years, give me as much chaos as possible. It may not produce the most compelling games at times, and we'll talk about some of the matchups in a second, but the fact that you have Boise State and Arizona State getting buys, the fact that everybody is kind of up in arms in some capacity about that, I'm okay with that as an agent of chaos for these next 2 years at least, until the blue bloods, really start getting there and further kind of stretching their room at the table.
Yeah, my favorite part of this new playoff is home games in the first round. You know, we're going to see SMU. Okay, you made it. Your reward is a trip to Happy Valley, where who knows what kind of weather you're going to get up there. But I'm really looking forward to that. I think it would be even better if the teams that got buys also got home games, but they have to fit those 6 big bowls in there somewhere. So that's kind of the cost of that. But it would really be fun to see, Boise not only gets a bye, but someone's got to go up to the Smurf turf and try and beat them up there. That's unfortunately, that's not going to happen. That game will be in the Fiesta Bowl.
All right.
And real quick, the good news is we get Boise in the Fiesta Bowl, which, as we know, man, it's hard to not feel good vibes and get all warm and fuzzy thinking about what we've seen from those guys in the Fiesta Bowl.
Well, they've got one of the best players, if not the best players in the country, in Ashton Genty. So, they're not going to just lay down for whoever shows up. This is a team that almost beat Oregon. They had to give up 2 kick returns for touchdown to lose to Oregon. So they're going to be ready to play.
Jerry, as a Purdue graduate, I have to ask you what your reaction is to Notre Dame and Indiana playing in a opening round playoff matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough time in Indiana for the reversible jacket crowd. We have a lot of people in this state that are Notre Dame football fans and Indiana basketball fans, so we call them the reversible jacket crowd. That's going to be interesting, I guess. I like Notre Dame to win that game. For one, they're playing at home, but also, Indiana played one team like Notre Dame this year and got smoked at Ohio State. And if anything, Indiana had a great season. Don't get me wrong. They annihilated everybody they played except Ohio State, of course, and Michigan played them close. But I think that Ohio State game showed us that Indiana's not really in their weight class, and Notre Dame is in that weight class. So I think Indiana's going to have their hands full trying to win at Notre Dame. They're probably going to need maybe a little bit of help, which, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. So, anything is possible. It's the Purdue fan in me is not bothered by it. I wouldn't go to the game. If Notre Dame was playing somebody else, I would have considered going, but I don't need to watch those two play each other.
Real quick, guys. Speaking of that, Dan Wetzel from Yahoo posted this a couple moments ago. The current cheapest tickets on StubHub for the following games: SMU Penn State is $122, Clemson is $310, Tennessee Ohio State is $344. The current cheapest price for an Indiana Notre Dame set of tickets is $1,065. So I don't necessarily know who's those tickets, but somebody is spending $1,000 minimum to get into the stadium.
Yeah, they've never played each other. They played once since 1958, and that was in 1991. So Purdue plays them a lot, but Indiana hardly ever plays Notre Dame.
Wow. Jerry, which of these opening round games are you most looking forward to, or do you have a particular eye on for whatever reason?
I would say, if I'm going to pick one, it's Notre Dame and Indiana, just because of the fact they never play each other. But in terms of competitiveness, it's Ohio State and Tennessee. Those are two really, elite level teams that have got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They each, I would say, just slightly underachieved a little. They're in the playoffs, so they didn't underachieve a lot. But each of them left probably a win on the table that might have put them in a better position, maybe giving them a chance, certainly for Ohio State, a chance to play for the Big Ten title. So, but I think it's a great matchup. It's going to be played in Columbus, so you have to favor Ohio State. But, Tennessee is certainly capable of winning this game even up there.
Swinging into the bowl games, as those were announced yesterday, Jerry, any of those matchups particularly jump out at you as must-see TV or interesting storylines or anything like that?
Yeah, well, you get Alabama and Michigan. That's two huge brands with different levels of success this year. That's, I believe, the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa. That's a great matchup of big-name programs. Alabama, of course, had a good but down year by its standard. Michigan coming off a national championship and a down year by its standard as well. But I still think it's a good matchup. I think, and you never know what you're going to get in a bowl game. You've got to, for some of these teams, 3 weeks off before you play. You've got guys entering the transfer portal now, which is only a thing that's, a few years old in terms of players abandoning bowl games or just sitting them out because they don't want to get hurt, even if they're coming back next year. So you never you've always been in the position of not really knowing what you're going to get. And now with roster, decimation in some cases going into these bowl games, you really don't know what you're going to get. But I think for me, the one that has the most interest is that Alabama-Michigan game.
Jerry, I'm curious, how in the world does Colorado and BYU get matched up in the Alamo Bowl? I know Colorado's excited to be there, but how in the world, how does that come together?
Well, first of all, if they had played each other in the regular season, it wouldn't have happened. But they didn't. But the Pac-12 teams, the former Pac-12 teams, all 12 of them are still eligible to go and fill the contracted Pac-12 bowl slots this year and next year. And the Alamo Bowl was a Big 12 Pac-12 game. So Colorado is there as a Pac-12 team, not a Big 12 team. And so when you look at the old Pac-12 bowls, they've got teams from the Big 10 that used to be in the Pac-12 and the Big 12, and I think Cal as well out of the ACC was bowl eligible. So all of those teams are filling Pac-12 bowl spots as opposed to spots from their new conferences. And that's how BYU and Colorado worked out for the Alamo Bowl.
Makes sense. That to me, yeah, it's going to be a fun game, I think.
Yeah, it's nice that they were able to do this because the Alamo Bowl likes to get, they like to get 9 or 10 win teams in there. And if they couldn't put this matchup together, they would have not been able to do that. So this is a great matchup, and it just didn't happen in the regular season. So I'm excited about that game as well.
Another team filling a Pac-12 bowl slot is Washington, as they will take on Louisville in the Sun Bowl out at El Paso. And, I'm intrigued. Will Washington wear a Pac-12 patch on their jersey? They put their conference patches on for bowl games and that kind of thing. I don't think they will, but that's.
I don't think so. I don't know. I never really paid attention to the patches. But I would be surprised if there was a Pac-12 patch on anyone's jersey this year.
Jerry Palm of CBSSports.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today. We've got John Brice of Football Scoop coming on with us here later in the show to talk about coaching changes. But Jerry, wanted to get your thoughts about Barry Odom coming to Purdue.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about it. He's done a great job at UNLV. Got them really competitive in a short period of time. And of course, he's been at Missouri before as well. So it's a guy with head coaching experience, which Purdue really needs. And he's still a young guy, 48, I think is how old he is. So that's relatively young in coaching terms. I think he's going to bring some energy. Hopefully he can keep some of the players that are, worth keeping. I mean, this is the worst team in the history of Purdue football. So I don't know how many guys are going to be worth keeping, but there are certainly some. And but he's going to have to go out and hit the transfer portal hard and try and rebuild this roster to get it to be competitive in relatively short order. It would be asking a whole lot for them to have an Indiana kind of year next year, which is what, Kurt Cignetti brought his whole staff and a bunch of transfers with him. I don't know that, Purdue's going to be quite so fortunate, but, anything is going to be better than last year. That was the worst season in the history of Purdue football. And there's I don't even know that I can give you a second worst. It's that bad.
Jerry, we appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon and look forward to getting you back on to talk a little basketball because it's certainly heating up and is giving us some interesting storylines here between Thanksgiving and Christmas already. So look forward to it. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
Jerry.
When we continue after this break on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, we'll talk a little baseball. Again, the winter meetings are getting started up down in Dallas today, and some news has already come out of there. There's been some baseball news, maybe not necessarily from Dallas, but there's some baseball news. Some folks are getting paid. Stay tuned when we come back.
Do you want to be a bad man? Yes, you do. Do you want to taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, When it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. The Monday Mirror continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade and I coming to you from the Lee Company studios. In the second hour, we will be speaking with John Brice of Football Scoop, footballscoop.com. It's not in print, but talking about some coaching vacancies that have been filled and some coaching vacancies yet to be filled. So stick around for that. Right now, talking a little baseball, and again, some phone calls went out yesterday as a couple of Hall of Famers were announced. The Classic Baseball Era Committee voted, and Dick Allen and Dave Parker will be part of the 2025 induction class into the Baseball Hall of Fame this summer. 16 ballots. Parker was on 14 of those. The late Dick Allen was on 13 of those. They were the only 2 of the 8 nominees to reach that 75% threshold that is necessary for induction. Tommy John received 7 votes. Ken Boyer, John Donaldson, Steve Garvey, Vic Harris, and Louis Tiant, none of them received more than 5 votes. So 2 of those guys, again, Dick Allen, who played with the Phillies and the Cardinals. I think I remember him with the White Sox, but also spent a little time with the Atlanta Braves. But he will be going in, passed away at the age of 78 back in 2020, but obviously this is great for his family and the folks that played with him and have kind of supported his candidacy. Dave Parker, I can't think of Dave Parker without thinking of that throw that he made, I think, in the 1979 All-Star game from right field to get Brian Downing at the plate. But he was an NL MVP that year, won 3 Gold Gloves, played with the Pirates and the A's primarily. Never got more than 20%. Well, got 20% twice in the 15 years that he spent on the conventional Hall of Fame ballot. He'll be going in at the age of 74. So, congrats to both those guys.
Well deserved. And some of these folks that didn't meet the threshold, you would assume maybe now kind of rise up as the years continue. But I guess we'll see on that part. But yeah, well deserved for both of those guys, both Allen and Parker.
Yeah, the Era Committee was the Veterans Committee. Now they recognize like 3 different groups of players. The Classic Baseball Era Committee covers players, managers, umpires, and executives whose primary contribution to the game came prior to 1980. The Contemporary Baseball Era covers from 1980 to the present, and that group considers executives, umpires, managers, and then there is another Contemporary Baseball Era group that considers players from 1980 forward. So you've got 3 different groups, and they vote in a cycle. So I guess every 3 years, one of these particular committees kicks in and considers folks from the era that they are assigned to. This year's panel included Hall of Famers Ozzie Smith, Lee Smith, Paul Molitor, Eddie Murray, Joe Torre, and Tony Perez, in addition to a handful of executives and media members. So it'll be another 3 years before this, the Veterans Committee comes together again to consider guys prior to 1980. But yeah, this is huge. I mean, how Dave Parker wasn't already in is kind of mind-boggling. Dick Allen was one of those guys. I think his numbers just were so steady that they don't really jump out at you, but more than 3,000 total bases, hit 292 for his career, 351 home runs over 15 seasons. For those of you into advanced stats, an OPS plus of 156, which is 9th all-time in baseball's integrated era, and a career WAR of 58.7. I'm not sure exactly what those mean, but 9th all-time kind of jumps out at you a little bit.
Yeah, you start talking top 10 in any metric or any stat, really, your ears kind of perk up, to say the least.
Gets your attention a little bit. The draft lottery for the 2025 draft will take place tomorrow out in Dallas. All of the teams that did not make the playoffs are typically entered into a lottery for the top 6 picks, unless they are a payer club, which is a team that pays revenue sharing dollars rather than receiving revenue sharing dollars. They don't get to participate. So the White Sox, despite finishing with the worst record in baseball, will not be eligible for the lottery and won't pick higher than 10th or 11th. The A's had back-to-back, well, they had lottery picks in both 23 and 24, and you cannot draw a lottery pick 3 years in a row. So the Athletics, on top of everything else, won't be in the lottery either. So that leaves the Rockies, Marlins, Angels, Nationals, Blue Jays, Pirates, Reds, Rangers, Giants, Rays, Red Sox, Twins, Cardinals, Cubs, Mariners, and D-backs. And it's for the top 6 picks. And then after that, I guess it goes back to being based on what your record was, with the worst record picking the earliest. So, man, that's tough for the White Sox with everything else they had going for them. Oh, by the way, you're not even eligible for the number 1 pick.
Yeah. Just in case we thought they were tanking, now you're not even rewarded. So
Yeah.
Tough.
So
tough sledding.
It absolutely is.
Your futility is not entirely rewarded.
Maybe they'll get the number 7 pick. No. I'm sorry. They can't pick higher than 10th. So, Juan Soto. So I'm sitting at the house minding my own business last night, watching a little football, doing a little work, and I get a text from David Wilson of the Robertson County Connection, and all it says is, "I hate the Mets." And I'm like,
okay.
Oh, right. So I'm like, okay, something has clearly happened.
It's a day that ends in Y. I'm curious where this is going here. You're thinking.
So something has clearly happened. I mean, I hate the Mets too, but I hadn't necessarily felt the need to reach out to anybody until I got on the interwebs and realized Juan Soto, 15 years, $765 million. Mets. Yeah, okay. I see what you mean, David. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of time. And how old is Juan Soto? Juan Soto is 26 years old. So he is now signed through, he'll be 41 when this contract runs out. I don't know, man. That's a lot to me.
A lot of dough. He does have an opt-out after 5 years, though, and if it's like anybody else, I'm assuming I'd be willing to risk a couple shekels that he does not fulfill the entirety of this contract as it is expressly written. But to your point, my goodness, some eye-popping numbers.
You have to wonder though. I mean, if he opts out, then it's probably to the Mets' benefit because he has outperformed the contract probably, which begs the question: how do you outperform a 15-year, $765 million contract? So
crazy.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
His $75 million signing bonus would be the largest free agent deal in the history of the Cleveland Guardians. I saw earlier.
His signing bonus.
His signing bonus would be the largest. His $765 million deal equates to roughly 0.6% of the entire GDP of the Dominican Republic, which is about 121 million. So my man he could buy 1% ownership in the Dominican if he so chose to spend his money as such. That's the kind of numbers we're talking about here.
He could buy a major league team. I think I saw where that was more than the asking price of 22 major league teams that were sold. So $765 million, y'all. Mind-boggling. To finish third in the NL East? We'll see.
Yeah, time will tell. They we joked about it a couple weeks ago. They outlasted the Phillies, so they kind of got the last lap. But they want that regular season title as he's back in that division after terrorizing for a little bit with the Nationals to start his career.
And how do you feel if you're the Yankees? I mean, you bring this guy to town, and he's like, "Yeah, I like it here. I just don't like it with you guys."
Yeah, we talked about it, right? We said that he had that iconic photo that he was the last one in the dugout after, and I said at the time, I was like, that either means one of two things. He's either saying, all right, we're going to get back to this spot, or I'm savoring my last deal here. And credit to Soto, man. Not many folks can be as open and transparent. He said, hey, whoever maybe throws the most bucks at me, I'm willing to sign with. And now he doesn't even have to move very far.
Right. The Dodgers had to make do with signing outfielder Michael Conforto for 1 year at $17 million. Bargain basement shopping are the Dodgers now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are the little spenders suddenly, the little kids on the block.
Yeah. Meanwhile, a potential piece for the Atlanta Braves went by the boards as the San Francisco Giants have signed shortstop Willie Adames, 7 years, $182 million for him, the former Milwaukee Brewers shortstop. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on what the Braves do to address shortstop, or if they address shortstop. They may have to try to prevent a fan mutiny because the majority of the fan base is out on Orlando Arcia, but we'll see how that goes. Meanwhile, Max Fried and the Red Sox are in talks, apparently. And, would not bother me a great deal to see him go to the American League if he's not coming back to Atlanta.
Yeah. Let's get you on out of here. If you're going to leave, let's go ahead and get you as far out of sight as possible.
Yeah, so we don't have to really mess with you a whole lot. So, yeah. Hour number one of the Monday Mirror here on Main Street Sports Today is in the books. When we return for hour number two, we will get into some NFL and some Titans talk. Stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this.
Nashville's Nutcracker returns to TPAC this December, presented by Nashville Ballet. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets at NashvilleBallet.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilas Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour 2 of the Monday Mirror here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts right now. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios, and let's talk Titans and Jaguars.
Rough day at the office for the big rivals. And after ruining Jacksonville's season, keep them out of the playoffs in Week 17 last year, did not go Tennessee's way yesterday.
It did not go Tennessee's way yesterday. This was, I think I heard this right, this was the lowest scoring NFL game this season?
I think so. What did I say? There was a 21-3, I think, earlier this year, or 27-3. The Patriots were in. So combined, for sure, I think it was – points were at a premium, to say the least.
Yeah.
They say defense wins championships, but that did not. That's a different kind of context we're talking about here.
Yeah, I don't think this was defense. I think it was inept offense, basically. But yeah, obviously, I mean, in a 10-6 game, Tennessee had their chances. They had a fourth down pass go off of Nick Westbrook-Akini's hands in the end zone that would have put them up late, not necessarily casting any aspersions at NWI, because I think it was a heck of an effort just to get hands on it. But, you know, that was just kind of the way the second half of this game in particular went for the Titans. I mean, they did some good things on offense early on and couldn't get more than field goals out of it. And, you know, for Brian Callahan to come in and say a lot of positives out of this ball game, I don't know who he's blowing smoke at, but not a whole lot of positives coming out of a loss to a 3-win team in your division at home. That's just a tough one to to really try to sell as it's not as bad as it looked. Yeah, it is.
It was pretty rough. Only positive I would say is we got another good game out of Pollard, and Ridley had a decent game. Obviously, would have liked to get more, but he did have 12 targets and made 7 snags, and only 2 sacks for Levis. One of them, the ridiculous Hail Mary or Fail Mary, if you will, right at the end of the half. And, everybody's kind of holding their breath. Mason Rudolph was warming up on the sideline there at Nissan Stadium yesterday, but he never appears. And, yeah, it was an ugly game all around for the boys in two-tone blue yesterday.
And that hit looked bad. And, you get an interception right there. You feel like, okay, we are in range. I mean, maybe we can get a Hail Mary, something like that, get a cheapie right here. And instead you almost get your quarterback beheaded. And it's like, this is why we can't have nice things. Even when something good happens for the Titans, something bad happens for the Titans. And Levis somehow managed to stay in the game, but man, that was a wicked lick that he took from Josh Allen, the Josh Hines Allen, excuse me, the defensive Josh Allen. So, yeah, Titans again fall to 3-10 with the loss. They are one of 5 3-10 teams in the AFC alone, and the Panthers are there as well. So 6 teams at 3-10. Nobody's as bad as the Raiders at 2-11, though. So thank goodness for Antonio Pierce and Vegas, I guess.
And the Giants are right there with them too. You're not wanting to be in the same breath as those guys, because things have gotten rough in Tennessee. Kind of just going through the motions. I heard a crazy stat though that if Vegas had won, that game on Black Friday, the Chiefs, more on them later, I guess, but Vegas kind of felt like they should have won that game, just like a lot of teams have versus Kansas City. If they had won that game based on if they're catapulted into this mix and tied with a lot of teams, their record of opponents faced is like crazy astronomical. So they could go from like picking first all the way down to like 10th. Depending on if they're careful, if they win like 1 or 2 more games down the stretch. So if you're Vegas, you want to lose at all costs because the schedule doesn't work in your favor.
Well, they may lose at all costs because I think Aiden McConnell went out last night or yesterday. So
yeah, he had the air cast on him. It was a sneaky injury too. It was not as pronounced as you might think. And so Desmond Ridder trots out there, and that's not waving the white flag, but it's pretty close.
Folks in Atlanta would tell you it is. So we'll see how that goes. You mentioned the Giants. We're going to get to them in a second as well. But Kansas City, clean living, clearly, because Matthew Wright, the backup kicker, doinks a field goal off the left upright and through on the final play of the game for a 19-17 win over Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. That win clinched the Chiefs' 9th straight AFC West title. I think the only team that has won more consecutive divisions is the Patriots with 11. But clearly there are those that would tell you they're doing it with smoke and mirrors. Clearly there are those that would tell you they're doing it with officials. But they're also getting some lucky bounces, literally.
Yeah, that was crazy. And it's classic Chiefs, right? The situation, they have the chance to win the game, and the game is coming down to the stretch, and they got that key 3rd down. And if they don't convert that 3rd down, they're probably going to give the ball back with a minute or so, even if they make the field goal to Herbert and the Chargers. Who knows what happens then? And then what happens? Mahomes rolls to his right, makes just one man miss. And by making one man miss, he keeps the play alive, and he finds Kelsey downfield. That allows them to take a knee and run the clock out. And, the doink. I thought Tirico, he went Chirico for a minute there because it was an ugly kick. The moment it left his foot, I said, this is not looking like it's going to go in. But I said, well, it's close enough. It'll go in pretty easily. And then all of a sudden, you heard the doink, and it's just like, whoa. And then everybody in the stadium, it was great watching the reactions. They don't know whether to celebrate. They don't know if it went in. They don't know if it was off and fell back short. But it was, like you said, good, clean living for KC, who improves to 12-1. And that's a massive win. That was a hard-fought game. LA was right there, but couldn't pull it off like many teams versus the Chiefs.
The doink for the division, I think, was how
Yeah.
Tarico described it. So yeah, big win for Kansas City, now 12-1. Buffalo trying to keep some pressure on Kansas City, unable to yesterday, fall into the Rams 44-42. But as we like to say on this show from time to time, Josh Allen walked into the locker room after the game and said, I didn't lose this game. Y'all lost this game. Dude throws for 342 yards, rushes for another 82 on 10 carries, scores 3 rushing touchdowns, throws for 3 touchdowns, the first player in the Super Bowl era to do so in a loss.
By far the wildest game of the day. And it just when you thought it was going to kind of settle down, it just got even crazier. And Allen, I'm not saying he wrapped up the MVP last night. Saquon needs like a 92 or 93 yards a game down the stretch to pop 2K. That can maybe get him in the discussion. But Josh Allen, to your point, yeah, MVP-like performance even in a losing effort last night, which pretty much quelled any talk about them getting the 1 seed. But what a fun game that was.
That was a fun game. And it, I've not been on the Josh Allen bandwagon, but he's starting to win me over, man, because he does some things on the field, and a lot of it's instinctive, looks like, and it's kind of an all he does is win kind of thing, except for yesterday. So certainly fun to watch. Again, we mentioned the Giants a little bit ago. Apparently yesterday during their 14-11 loss, there was a plane flying over MetLife Stadium asking John Mara, the Giants owner, to fix this dumpster fire after the loss to the Saints that dropped New York 2-11, like you said. Somebody asked Malik Neighbors, the rookie receiver out of LSU, who has kind of been in the crosshairs a little bit for some other comments that he's made over the course of this season regarding the competitiveness or lack thereof of the Giants. But someone asked him if he saw the plane and the banner. Malik's response, I ain't paid for the plane.
Wasn't me.
So
I may know who it was, but it wasn't me.
No. Well, it does. That's the type of response that makes you wonder, are you sure you didn't pay for the plane, Malik? Because that's not necessarily the response that you're looking for in that situation. But yeah, he has been quite outspoken about the shortcomings of the Giants over the course of this season. But he kind of went next level with that one, I think. So please fix this dumpster fire. I don't know if it's fixable, but I mean, they've already gotten rid of Daniel Jones. They are going back and forth, I guess, between Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock, their 2 backup quarterbacks, and again, they're 2-11. So there's not a whole lot out there for the Giants in 2024, but this is, I don't know if any other team is having planes flying over and, carrying messages. So it does look like you said, between them and the Raiders, the Giants won't pick any worse than number 2 as long as the seeds hold. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and they still got the Ravens. They got to go to Atlanta, which all of a sudden is somewhat of a winnable game. They get the Colts at home, but then they close with the Eagles. They don't have the Cowboys on their schedule to maybe potentially bank or circle a win. So, yeah, they could be right there in the top two come this April.
They may not win another one the rest of the way. If you're watching the 4-8 Bengals and the 5-7 Cowboys tonight on Monday Night Football, you don't have to watch the ABC feed. You can watch the Simpsons feed on Disney Plus and ESPN Plus. The Simpsons Fun Day Football. Special alternate broadcast. I think this is the second time that they've done something like this. I think previously it involved
Toy Story.
So.
This is the only reason I'm tuning in tonight, partner. I'll be glued to this feed. I watched the Toy Story feed, and it was epic. I had to get up early though for that one. That was a London game. Give us this game in prime time. So this is going to be much more appealing than having to get up at 8 a.m. for the Toy Story feed a couple years ago.
Mina Kimes and Dan Orlovsky will be talking football strategy. Drew Carter will be your play-by-play announcer, and your sideline reporters will be Marge and Lisa Simpson. The premise of all of this is Homer is dreaming.
Yeah,
after
and
eating. Okay.
I was going to say, yeah, and what's going to be funny is I think they're, to your point, they're doing like a full episode around this. And if you go back, I think it's like season 4, You Only Move Twice, which is one of my favorite Simpsons episodes ever. He talks about he wants to own the Dallas Cowboys. And then at the end of the show, he gets stuck with the Denver Broncos, which is a bit of hilarity in its own right there at the end of the episode. So maybe we'll see what unfolds. Maybe Homer will get a little something going in his dream, and will, kind of quell the nightmare that everybody else is forced to watch, which is Dallas and Cincinnati.
I'm gonna have to check this out. Apparently,
it's gonna be fun.
Apparently, Homer ate too many hot dogs, and that it's triggered this NFL related dream. So this just. But this is why they couldn't flex this game out of Monday Night Football, was because they were so far down the road with this Simpsons simulcast, I guess, for our alternate broadcast. So, because it'll be interesting to see which draws more viewers, the straight up game with Buck and Aikman, or this on Disney Plus and ESPN Plus, because the game itself doesn't figure to be all that entertaining. So,
yeah, actual gameplay. We'll probably see the Bengals rack up a lot of points. We'll see what the Cowboys bring to the table. But yeah, I can get down with Homer. And apparently they're broadcasting the game, quote unquote, from Adams Stadium, ATOMS, in Springfield. So it'll be fun for the Simpsons fans out there. Like I said, it'll be a great way to take your mind off what you're really kind of being subjected to in real life.
No doubt. When we continue here on Main Street Sports Today, the Monday Mirror edition, we will catch up with John Brice of footballscoop.com, talking a little coaching carousel, among other things. Stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company studios after this.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
He shoots, and he scores!
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
The Monday Mirror continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's a well-hydrated Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios, and we're pleased to be joined now by Football Scoops, John Brice. John, you staying busy?
Quite busy. So keeping it in perspective. It's I'm not out here serving the public or doing manual labor, but it's a busy time of the year.
It is a busy time of the year, and I wanted to ask you, is it busier with the earlier signing date in December than maybe it would have been otherwise?
I'll tell you what I think is it's a little busier this year than what I had anticipated or what a lot of people throughout college athletics had anticipated. It's not as busy as last year's coaching cycle. Not at the FBS nor the FCS levels. Last year was an incredibly brisk cycle. This one overall has been a bit more muted. And the biggest reason for that isn't the early signing day, I'm told. It's the looming revenue share and the other potential changes that are looking to be ratified in April of next year. And revenue share being chief amongst them. The second one being if FBS football programs go to 105-person scholarship limits. And if that's the case, you're talking about how many schools are going to be able to afford funding an additional 20 full scholarships. And if they fund an additional 20 full scholarships in a men's program, if they're in Title IX balance, that means they have to add another women's sport or fund an additional 20 women's scholarships. Or if they choose to take their rosters up to 105 in football, they have to trim 20 from somewhere else. So there's just so much unknown right now that, frankly, I think it's a lot of the reason why Billy Napier got a vote of confidence before his team earned it on the field down the stretch. And I think Florida made the right decision there. But that to me is the dominant theme of this coaching cycle thus far.
Got you. Well, as busy as you are, we appreciate you taking some time to chat with us. And I will tell you, for all of the coaching changes that took place and for all of the, the flurry of hires that took place over the weekend, there was one that just screamed, I got to get Bryce on to talk about this. Willie Simmons to Florida International. Now, Willie Simmons, former MTSU assistant, by the way, and so I think that's part of why I'm fascinated by him and kind of drawn to his story. But successful head coach at Prairie View, very successful head coach at Florida A&M, stepped back into a position coaching role this past season with Manny Diaz. I think they had coached together over at MTSU. Stepped back from a head coaching role at a HBCU, a FCS program, to a position coach at at the time, Power 5 program. And after a year, gets the gig at FIU. Did he have to take that route?
No, I don't think he had to take that route. I think it ended up working out obviously very well for him. But if he had stayed at FAMU and had another 9, 10, 11 win season for the Rattlers, as beloved as he is in the state of Florida, as much as he is a known commodity throughout that state, he's got great relationships with the high school coaches, I'm told. I think he would have still been in the same exact position. I think that he had done a lot of great things at FAMU. He had the Rattlers to a level of success that they had never enjoyed before. And frankly, he got a pay raise to leave the head coach's job at Florida A&M to be an assistant coach for Manny Diaz at Duke University. And so it worked out well for him. I don't believe he had to do that. I think you'll see more FCS coaches making the jump to FBS coaches, particularly at the G5 level. And Matt Entz had a 1-year layover basically from leaving North Dakota State and then being on staff at USC and then getting the Fresno State job last week. So it's not completely unprecedented, but I don't think it's also necessarily requisite. It's not too long ago that Will Healy turned his work at Austin Peay into the FBS head job at Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for helping me through that. How shocked were you that Scott Frost is going back to Orlando?
I'm pretty shocked. I'm frankly really shocked, especially considering roughly this time a week ago, maybe it was Monday, maybe it was Tuesday, where it looked like Central Florida was almost to the goal line with Jamie Chadwell, an East Tennessee native, who's the head coach at Liberty, and it looked like they were going to get that done, and then met in person, and a lot of people seem to think that in-person meeting was a mere formality. And I think Chadwell, for whatever reason, pulled out of consideration and opted to go a different direction, staying with Liberty for now. And at that point in time, things intensified with Scott Frost and his old place, his old program, even though it's an entirely new AD now that didn't work with Scott Frost at UCF. He turned over a lot of rocks, and they talked with Barry Odom. They talked with a number of other candidates, but Scott Frost delivered the greatest success that program has ever known. He expressed a desire to be back coaching at the collegiate level rather than in the NFL, and UCF made a move that it felt can recapture some of that previous magic.
They say you can't go home, and I guess Scott Frost proved that once when he went to Nebraska. So I'm just wondering if he can replicate it this time around.
You know, yeah, the Nebraska thing is so close to a different narrative because of how many one score losses that program absorbed, and it's by far the most in college football at the power conference level of anyone over the last decade, and it's continued, frankly, a great deal in the past couple of years under Matt Rule. So you wonder if Nebraska had all that decades-long success under Tom Osborne, if there wasn't a hex put on the Cornhuskers corn or something afterwards, because nobody has lost more heartbreaking games than that program over the last decade, and it's transcended coaches. But, Scott Frost is offensive innovator. Terry Mohajir, the UCF AD, who used to be at Arkansas State, made it very clear early in the process that he wanted an offensive-minded coach.
John, I want to ask you about two jobs, technically both still open. Let's start with North Carolina. And I guess my real question is, what is the ceiling? Obviously, we're hearing some stuff about Bill Belichick and things of that nature, but what is the ceiling, and where does this North Carolina job kind of fit in the pecking order of college football in your mind?
You know, I think that it can be a really good job. You obviously have a lot of appeal there because You've got some of the greatest uniforms and gear anywhere, and that still matters to kids.
That counts for a lot.
You're wearing the Jordan brand and you get stuff that nobody else gets. You know, Oregon being right in the shadow of Nike headquarters, and North Carolina being Michael Jordan's alma mater. Those two programs get the best gear of the best gear. And then you've got a state that produces a lot more talent than people realize. And you've seen Charlotte absolutely explode with population and therefore even more high school talent in recent years. You do have some tougher academic standards there than maybe some other state universities. And then in speaking with people that have intimate knowledge of North Carolina, they're lagging behind in the NIL space. And so, I had somebody tell me, well, look, they had Roy Williams on a bit of a discount. They had Mac Brown on a discount. Now they've got Hubert Davis on a discount. They're probably not going to get a family discount on their next head coach. And I think that so they've got to decide how much they're going to wade into the college football marketplace with where it is right now from a salary standpoint, and how committed are they from an NIL standpoint. But I do think thus far it's the most attractive job in this cycle.
It certainly is appealing, and everything you just said is kind of what I was thinking. It feels like it could be, not necessarily like a sleeping giant, but it feels like it could be a job that is pretty appealing. Hey, we just talked about Scott Frost and going back to an old school. Break down kind of the rumors and rumblings about Rich Rod going to West Virginia. Is there a chance that happens?
There's definitely a chance that happens. He has spoken with them. They're continuing interviews today. I think they finally are doing some more in-person interviews. They've had a first wave of Zoom and phone interviews. He's got some strong support to go back there. He's got a plan that he has very clearly articulated for the NIL space. If they choose to bring him back there, he's got some people that are longtime supporters of his, that are close friends, that support him wherever he's the head coach. And it's my understanding they're prepared to financially support him from an NIL standpoint if he's brought back to West Virginia. He's not the only candidate there. Jimbo Fisher was a little bit involved, and I think it expressed some interest in it. But I got a text yesterday from a college coach saying that, the two sides aren't going to pursue it any further at this point in time. Jeff Monken is a guy that I think has spoken with West Virginia. I think he would be a fit at North Carolina. Frankly, I thought Purdue might give him a longer look before going with Barry Odom. I just think Monken is really good, and people want to talk about his offense, but he's got some diversity to it, and the guy just wins ball games.
John Bryce of Football Scoop. Go ahead.
Real quickly, also, while we're on the kind of opposite end of that, what's going on with Tulane? Because it felt like the last 2 weeks there was a swirl that Summerall was going to be out of there, and now all of a sudden it feels like he's sticking around in New Orleans. What are you hearing?
Yeah, he met in person with officials from North Carolina. I think he was head and shoulders their top choice in the process, but he's in a great position to be very selective. Didn't quite get the conference championship win that he had set out to do this year at Tulane, but his alma mater is Kentucky. Mark Stoops is, in some real not trouble at Kentucky, but I think he's peaked. I think Kentucky's success under Mark Stoops has been exaggerated a good bit because they've beaten up on a lot of weak sisters and they've been MAC conference champions a few times. So I think Mark Stoops has peaked, and John Summerall's alma mater is the University of Kentucky. We don't know what's going to happen at LSU a year from now. He's still making several $1 million at Tulane, so he can be very selective. And I think that he's just choosing a path of being selective and not jumping. He's not been a job hopper. He didn't anticipate leaving Troy when he did, but the dominoes fell, and the Tulane job was an awesome one. And I think he's just waiting for the next awesome job.
John Bryce from footballscoop.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today. John, one of the vacancies that has opened up and closed up in this cycle, App State getting rid of Sean Clark after his first losing season, I think, in 6 years, their first losing season in like 11 years. For former Tennessee Titans staffer Dow Loggins getting that gig. I think he came off the staff at South Carolina. What was your feel with them making the move to start with, and what's your feel with the direction that they went in?
This move almost happened a year ago. It was incredibly close to happening a year ago. And then App State got hot mid-season and tore off a bunch of wins. And that sort of bought Clark another year to prove that he had the program going in the right direction. But it was not surprising. He's lost, I think, a combined 17 games in the last 3 seasons. I think that's what they were fixated on, that they just felt the program had reached a level of stagnation that was just going to be hovering right around 500, maybe 7-6, maybe 6-7, maybe 5-7, but in that range. So it really boiled down to the 17 losses over the course of the last three seasons, and the fact that it really almost happened last year. And I think maybe they closed the regular season on like a 5-1 run or something to buy that staff another year. Pretty surprised by the Dow Loggins hire, frankly. The first month of the year, there was a lot of gnashing of teeth in Columbia, South Carolina about his impact or lack of impact on making that Gamecocks offense very dynamic. They talked also with Neil Brown, who had just been fired from West Virginia. And I think that it took Neil telling them no before they pivoted to Dow Loggins and made him their next head coach. I do think it's a very attractive G5 job. They've got good facilities. They've got really passionate fans. It's a great area to live and be in. So I do think they've got a lot going for them. You can be very competitive there. It's harder to be as competitive there as say 5 years ago when things were changing, just because of the way the landscape has shifted in college athletics and specifically college football. And I don't know enough about their NIL situation to know how well positioned they are, but there are a lot of positives to that position.
What situation are you most fascinated with? Either someone who has taken a job right now or a job that's open, and who is being maybe considered or is on the horizon for it?
The most fascinating one is this perpetuating myth of Bill Belichick in North Carolina. And he has talked to them. They've had various conversations, more than one conversation. They've had some in-depth conversations. I don't understand how you talk about needing a fresh direction and moving on from 73-year-old Mac Brown and giving serious consideration to 72-year-old Bill Belichick, who hasn't coached in college football in decades on decades. He was on the Pat McAfee show today, basically stumping for why he's a great candidate. But the reason I find it most fascinating is that I think it tells you there's some dysfunction in the ivory tower in North Carolina. Is Bubba Cunningham running this search, or is the school chancellor running this search, or is it somebody on the board of trustees? So I'll be fascinated to see how it continues to unfold. Again, Jeff Monken is a guy that they've talked to there. He certainly knows the South. He was great at Georgia Southern. He certainly knows academic demands and rigors from what he's doing now at Army West Point. Do they also go offense there with a more modern offensive attack? What exactly do they do? I don't see a Jamie Chadwell as a fit at North Carolina. Perhaps I'm wrong. But yeah, really, it was Summerall or bust going into the weekend. And now that it's a bust and there's a power struggle, it's one of the more fascinating ones, not just of this cycle, but the last 3 or 4 cycles.
Were you shocked at Bronco Mendenhall going to Utah State?
No, not at all. Utah is home for him, that region. I think he's got a farm in the area. I think it's a good hire for Utah State. I think it's a really good hire for Utah State. We'll see. I've spent some time on that campus last summer. I've spent some time in Utah over the course of this year. I visited with some BYU coaches last month. It's a great area. It's got a sneaky high amount of football talent in that state. You're continuing to see even more and more talent because Salt Lake is booming much the way that Charlotte has been booming. And because of that, you're directly seeing more really high profile college football prospects. I think Jackson Arnold or Jackson Dart, excuse me, the Ole Miss quarterback is maybe from Utah. You've got the Isaiah Wilson kid who was a 4-star, who's at Utah now, the brother of Zach Wilson, who played at BYU and was a first-round draft pick in the NFL. Those guys are all from right outside the Salt Lake City suburbs. So you've got some good talent there. There was a 4 or 5-star offensive lineman prospect who maybe signed with Oregon in 23 and transferred out, and then another high-profile prospect who signed with Texas in one of the recent classes. So there's really good in-state talent in Utah. It means a lot to the people at all 3 of those programs, at Utah State, BYU, and Utah. Even Weber State gets some great support, as does Utah Tech and some of those other programs. So I'm not surprised. I think that it's a really, really good hire for Utah State.
It must be something about Utah. You said you've been out there recently. Wade was out there a few weeks ago. I'm feeling a little left out here.
Well, in full disclosure, number one, I love Utah. Number two, our godkids live in Lehigh, Utah, which is midway between Salt Lake and Provo. So you can visit the godkids and have it coincide with work, and it's a beautiful place to be. So all those are
win-win situation.
Yeah.
John, take me through the Charles Huff Marshall Southern Miss situation.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out for Marshall. And I like Tony Gibson, so full disclosure there. I think they made a solid hire, but I don't know how you look at that situation and you're anything other than disappointed if you're a Marshall fan. And there'd been tension there for over a year. The AD and some school leaders didn't like the fact that Huff had drawn interest and maybe interviewed with a Georgia Tech or somebody like that, or maybe it was Mississippi State in the last cycle because he had previously coached there. My point is, if you're at a G5 program and people aren't interested in your head football coach, you're probably not going to be running that G5 program for very long. You should be flattered that people want to talk to your coach. Charles Huff is the guy who got his start right there in Nashville, coaching at Tennessee State a couple of decades ago. I've gotten to know him well enough that I feel comfortable calling him a friend. I don't think he got a fair shake there. All he did was go to 4 bowl games in 4 years, just gave the team its first ever Sun Belt Conference championship. He beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame. If I'm not mistaken, he beat Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech. I know he beat Virginia Tech. He did some great things for that program. Huff can probably be a little gruff maybe, and Huff has a confidence about him. But again, you need that confidence in that position. He spoke his mind. I think he's a really good football coach. I frankly think that right now Southern Miss hired way above its weight in being able to land Charles Huff.
I think that's going to be a great fit, and I'm glad you pointed out the Notre Dame win. He's the OG upset victor in South Bend there. Hey, real quick, John, I want to ask you too. Put my Homer hat on real quick. Michigan, let's go if it's offensive coordinator, and granted this is a blog, but I found a couple of interesting names. Joe Craddock, former MTSU guy down at Tulane. But Dan Mullen was on this list, and I guess I'm curious whether it's Michigan or not. Does Dan Mullen, is he seriously thinking about getting back in the mix at a big level in your mind?
You know, I don't see him going back as an offensive coordinator. He expressed an incredibly strong interest in the North Carolina job and made it very clear and made it known to North Carolina officials that he had great interest in that job. I don't know if he got down the road with Central Florida or not. I think those two parties sort of felt each other out about how they might feel about a potential marriage had they chosen to go that route instead of the Scott Frost route at UCF. Mullen's got ties to this region. He's a guy who got his coaching start pretty early on, also at the University of Notre Dame. So I don't see that being a fit. I think he would be an asset to Sherrone Moore. I think Sherrone Moore needs an older voice around him, much like Marcus Freeman has really relied on Mike Denbrock and Al Golden as his top 2 coordinators. And I think that's helped expedite Freeman's growth as a coach, and Freeman's a great leader of men. But I don't see him going that route. I've heard the Craddock name as well. There's been some more tire kicking. I don't know if they'll look perhaps out of Tommy Reese, who's the tight ends coach right now for the Cleveland Browns. But obviously has big-time offensive coordinator experience, has recruited this region. I think Tommy Rees would be a really, really good fit for Michigan, especially with Michigan's personnel and the offense that Tommy Rees prefers to run, which is certainly a much more traditional pro-style offense.
2 quick questions for you, John. You mentioned the age factor with the North Carolina situation. K.C. Keeler going from Sam Houston State to Temple, 65-year-old dude. I know he's from the Philadelphia area. I know Temple needs a shot in the arm. Can you get it here?
You know, I understand it. He's got to make some really strong hires as he fills out his coaching staff, and I think he's got to bring some youth and some energy with him. But the guy does have a sustained, extended record of success, and he just wins football games. He's done it at all levels. He helped Sam Houston very successfully navigate the FCS to FBS transition sooner rather than later. And Temple needs stability. Look, they haven't had much success in recent years. They've turned over too many coaches in recent years. And, you know, with K.C. Keeler being from the region, being a proven coach, he's not coming there with one foot out the door eyeing his next job. And I think that stability is something that Temple sees in Keeler and is hoping that it gets with this hire.
How infatuated are you with elevating interim coaches, as East Carolina just did? They dismissed Mike Houston midway through the season. They installed the defensive coordinator, Blake Harrell, and they named him here not too long ago as the permanent replacement to Houston. And, you know, I was covering a coaching change once early in my career, and I asked an assistant if they were going to be getting in the mix to replace someone, and they said, hey, I was here with them. I'm part of the problem. You know, how much is that an issue, or, you know, just what is your feel about the East Carolina situation?
You know, that's another one that's seen as a really good job, that you can win there, that there's a lot of runway to be very competitive at that G5 level and challenge for a conference championship. And if you're doing that, then you've got a potential path to earn an at-large playoff bid or earn the G5 playoff bid. It doesn't happen very often for the reasons that you outlined. But Blake Harrell, I think, had an immediate impact on the culture there. After taking over, he got those guys to buy in. There wasn't a lot of ego. There was a lot of unity. He made it very clear his family loved the area, wanted to be there, wanted to stay there, and they went out and won a bunch of football games in a row and sort of forced John Gilbert's hand and kind of made the decision for him. I know East Carolina talked or had interest in Tyson Helton during that process, and then Helton and Western Kentucky stumbled a little bit down the stretch, and Blake Harrell and the Pirates just kept winning, and that sort of solved the situation for them. I don't think I've seen his contract terms yet, so I don't know what kind of permanent deal he got or what it looks like from a buyout standpoint or anything like that. But with the portal having opened today and with signing day last week, if you feel like you can have stability and it's not a bad thing, then he was in a good spot to earn that, because some stability is needed. Look at ETSU. They lose Trey Lamb yesterday, and the last count I saw today was double-digit players from ETSU already in the portal.
That's tough. John Brice of footballscoop.com joining us here. John, we appreciate you as always, and look forward to getting you back on again soon, because this carousel isn't slowing down anytime soon. So
you're right. Always love visiting with you, Mo, and Wade. I appreciate that, boys, very much. And if we don't visit again before Christmas, I hope that you and your families have a very Merry Christmas and a great holiday season.
Thanks. You as well, man. We'll talk soon.
All right. See you, boys. Take care.
All right. Hey, when we continue here on the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, it's the grab bag, and there's plenty to grab a hold of. Stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company Studios after this.
So, you want to be a part of the Busy Bee team, huh? Well, how do you see yourself fitting into the organization? Oh, I get it. You want to be a weather bee.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
It's the final segment of the Monday Mirror here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're coming to you from the Lee Company Studios, and it's time for the grab bag. And I feel like I've kind of alluded to this enough that I have to say, I don't want to see Andrew Brunette get fired. But I don't want to see the Nashville Predators on a 7-game losing streak either. And I don't know how else this gets addressed. And I don't know if that addresses it. But something is bad wrong at Bridgestone Arena. And I don't know. You have to do something, right?
Feels like we're any day now. You got the Flames coming in tomorrow. You got the Stars on the road. You got the Avalanche on the road. They are struggling. They're beyond struggling. I mean, like I said, they're 2 points clear of Chicago for the worst team in the league. You're on a 7-game losing streak, which is the largest or longest losing streak actively in the NHL. It is not good for Nashville at the moment.
You're 2 games clear of Chicago, which just fired its coach with lower expectations than the Predators had coming into this season. And again, I'm not banging the drum for this. I'm just asking, what if you're going to do something and you have to do something, what else is there to do? Is there a trade to shake things up? It
feels like, you've exhausted kind of all good grace that you had coming in. And this was the only thing that I was a little worried about last season when they go on this epic run and you kind of recalibrate your expectations. But this was still, if not for that epic run, who knows what happens in the offseason? Who knows, if it still feels like they're kind of a year behind schedule, but they tried to accelerate the schedule and have struggled as a result.
Yeah, and maybe they kind of overextended themselves in the offseason as a result of that point scoring streak that they got on that kind of pushed them into the postseason, like you said, a little bit ahead of schedule maybe. But man, they've won just 2 of their last 10 games. They've been shut out in 2 of those, and in 8 of those, they've been held to 2 goals or less. So
it ain't been pretty. I was at Bridgestone Friday for Casey Musgraves, and there was a heck of a lot more good vibes at that concert than have been in that building the entire season, because it is not pretty for the Nashville Preds. Maybe the Trans-Siberian Orchestra or Justin Timberlake later this week will kind of bring some positivity back to the barn, because it ain't pretty right now.
Got Calgary coming to town tomorrow. And yeah, like you said, it's not looking great for the home team right now. So stay tuned. We kind of buried the lead a little bit when we were talking about Iowa and UT women at the top of the show. UT's women broke back into the AP Top 25 this week at number 19. It's the first time they have been ranked in the last 22 polls, I do believe.
Yeah, much needed. I mean, that is a resume booster. We mentioned that at the start of the show, and kind of climbing as a result. You know, we had joked that it was them and MTSU separated by what, 2 votes to start the season, and Tennessee has not lost a game, so they've ascended. And you know, the SEC, who knows how that schedule will play out, but they're putting themselves in great position for the second half of the season based on what they've done thus far.
Tennessee had not been ranked since the November 27th rankings of last year. Again, 22 straight polls that they had not been in. Since the ranking started in 76, they've been in the top 25 in 779 of 870 polls. So, I mean, they are as close to a fixture as there is, and now they're back. So we get to see now how they handle success. Tennessee clearly a basketball school, because on the men's side, Rick Barnes's bunch moved up 2 spots from last week into the number 1 spot this week. That big win over Syracuse helping a lot, but moving ahead of Auburn. Iowa State is number 3, Duke is 4, and Kentucky is 5, but the Vols sitting atop the men's top 25. And
third time in history, second time under Barnes. They've played great thus far, and I mean, until somebody knocks them off, it's theirs to keep.
No doubt. And they're undefeated right now, so we'll see how far they can run that out. Columbia State's men ranked number 21 in last week's NJCAA top 25. Finally lost. They fell 81-59 over at Roane State on Saturday. And so we'll see how far they slip with that loss, or if they fall out entirely. Be keeping an eye on that. Finally, as we mentioned, Ja's statement back in early November that he wouldn't be dunking anymore. He lied, y'all. And if you were watching last night's game against Boston, or if you've seen the highlights since then, well, show him, Mark.
Bain steps back. Morant, ball fake. Oh my God! Wow, Morant with a reverse.
You knew Ja was going to dunk again, right?
Ain't no doubt. He said that he talked to Brevin Knight before the game, and Saturday night, and Brevin was like, "Hey man, we haven't won in Boston in like 11 years." And Ja said, "I got a little inspired by that." And so Porzingis, the latest to be put on a poster by 12.
I took that personal. Ja said, "Yeah,
hell of a win for them on Saturday."
32 points for Ja in that win. Almost had a triple-double, 9 boards, 9 assists, and a couple of steals. But I mean, you can understand his concerns. He's not the biggest guy, and injuries have been a part of his career throughout. And so, you know, if he can protect himself a little bit, but sometimes that instinct just takes over. And when you give him the baseline like that, then you get what you get. So jamming
up to number 2 in the West, baby.
There we go. That's going to do it for the Monday Mirror edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Come back tomorrow at 2. We will be back at our regular time. We'll be joined by Ann Kimmel of Penalty Box Radio and Chip Walters, the Blue Raider voice. Stop by. Stay a while. We'll talk to y'all soon.